Hey, I feel a little better, but I'm still stuck with the pain and everything else that has beset my life. I got off the Flexeril because it was interfering with my sleep. The major issue was the Flexeril, but I was trying to help a friend, and she was in a kind of a panic mode, and I was to stay on the video with her all night, and something happened. She couldn't see me or something because it got dark in my room and she couldn't see me on the camera, and I was had dozed off, and she just yelled my name, and it rose me up, and it disrupted my brain as far as sleep, but it was only because of the Flexeril. If I wasn't on the Flexeril, it wouldn't have happened. So after she did that, I couldn't get back to sleep. Every time I go to sleep, I get woken up. So it kind of imprinted my brain to do that. But as soon as I stopped the Flexeril, it went away. And I was wondering about the Flexeril to begin with, because I'm thinking, for a certain part of this, it might be working, but for another part, it isn't. So it definitely was deadening the pain. But as far as releasing my muscles, I'm thinking it actually wasn't doing much. It was just, it may be making it worse, because I would get instabilities in the back from the whatever the medication was doing to my body. And I'm sure now that it was doing that, and I do have to wait to the end of this to see where it is, like the next couple of days. But I had this weakness in the left side every so often. So when I would hang from a stairway or something to test the strength of my back, it would be very weak on the left and stronger and tight on the right. Now, it's still a little bit tighter on the right, but when I hang, I have more bilateral strength and bilateral sensation that is more equal. So again, I have to keep an eye on everything as I try to piece my body back together. Well, what's really nice about Amarillo, and what's really bad about Amarillo, is that it's opening up to me, and it's a place I should have been years ago. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, and it would have worked out. So I had this thought that I need a massage therapist that's close by. None of them were close enough. And I need one that's willing to work through my problem, not just cookie cutter massage. I got kind of hurt the last place I was, and I just told them, I wasn't going to do massage till I got cleared to do it, kind of thing. So I looked the other day, got this blip, looked for a massage therapist, and I found one that was really into doing what I'm exactly speaking about, into trigger point medical massage, and will absolutely walk her way through it, which means I can press out a lot of these muscles and get myself a little limber. But when you're talking about what happened to my body and what's going on, there's certain areas like the hips and certain small muscles that might be holding certain parts of my body back from healing. So I have to have somebody that's willing to not push their way through it because of the pain at this point, but willing to, walk their way through it and have dialogue back and forth as to what I'm feeling. And then again, the little bit of trigger point, I say a little bit, there's a lot of trigger points on the right side still, but I'll tell you what, nothing compared to where it was. So the only question is, will firming my back up a little bit, stretching it, and starting to do some massage, will that alleviate some of the problem on the legs? So that's the next great hoorah here, to see if it happens. So I'm going to have a surgeon look at it. At this point, there's some new MRIs that the surgeon has to look at and decide where we are on it. In fact, I'm going to have 2 surgeons look at it. The only thing I was telling my brother, the only thing about back issues and back surgery, unless it's something that's absolutely obvious and the doctor says there's no way you're going to fix that with anything but surgery, is that you have to go through a whole series of things and try to fix it before you ever get the surgery. So you go to this graduation of all these programs to fix your back, and if it's still messed up, then you got to go get surgery and start all over again. So again, back surgery, it takes sometimes a year and a half or so before you actually graduate completely from the thing. So I had an area back problem. I had tightness in my neck, but during COVID I got real tight. I'm like, what is this? And I started stretching and it just went from bad to worse. Because I couldn't figure out where the leg problem was. I didn't know it was in my back. So my back wasn't bothering me. My back actually bothers me now, but I think it's because my 2 legs aren't bilaterally working right. And one's a little weaker than the other, a little shorter than the other, kind of deal. But I mean, time will tell. It takes 4 days for the flexural to get out. Now, something I didn't know, anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, if you've been on flexural longer than, say, a month, that's why they're only supposed to keep you on a few weeks, you could actually end up having a pain syndrome. And that could last weeks, up to weeks. It could last a day, 2 days, or a week, or whatever. So today, yesterday I felt great. Now I had been off it for like 24 hours. And I made all these appointments. And then all of a sudden I had severe pain this morning. I slept okay last night, but this morning that was it. Severe pain. So I kept looking around what it might be, and one of the things I found is this Flexerol withdrawal thing. Most doctors don't run into it, so they don't know about it, because it's a very rare occurrence, but anybody could have it. Because every doctor I talked to, even the doctor who told me to come off it, I couldn't get to my doctor. It was like Saturday, I started that couldn't sleep thing. Sunday, I called one of the telephone app docs, and he said, yeah, he goes, if I had my druthers, it would be the Flexeril. Because Flexeril acts on the brain, not on the muscles. So I had another doctor tell me, no, it's something else. But it turned out that the Flexeril got rid of that problem. I'm not saying I don't have maybe something like, she was thinking it was restless leg. And I'm not telling you I don't have leg issues that might wake me up. But this particular thing was, I tried to explain it to her. I start falling asleep, and then it's that, the mind doesn't know what I'm doing. The brain didn't know what I was doing. It's confused. Like, okay, are you sleeping? Are you waking up? Are you falling? Are you dreaming? Is this really happening? I just didn't know what was happening. It was just confused. So I said, yeah, maybe my leg does do that every so often, but... So I actually had to go to a second doctor to get a second opinion, because I'm like, this ain't going to work. I need to find somebody to give me some information. Anyway, when you go to a telephone app doc, you're not paying what you pay. I can go across the street to the emergency room and pay like $1,000, or I could pay like $50 to one of them. So I don't feel guilty if I have to call 2 doctors to get somewhere. The only problem I'm having trouble with is my doctor's great. She did more tests than anybody in the world would probably do for me. And her nurse is dissing her a little bit, but her nurse got cool. She didn't diss her so because I wouldn't bite into it. But she's like hard to get because she's Texas Tech, and she has to go do other things sometimes, like the hospital duty and things like that. So she's I don't think she gets her mess. I was telling the nurse, I said, I don't think she gets her messages, because I sent her messages on the app, and by the time I went to the next appointment, it was like a week later, she still hadn't read them. And then I showed them to her, and she said, oh, okay. So I don't know if that involves the nurse sending her the messages or what. But, it's just, she's done such a well job, I can't fault that, because I probably wouldn't have got that much help from any other doctor. So again, I guess metaphysically it might be trying to bring her down because she did such a great job. But what happens is the teledoc wants to prescribe me something. Even across the street, I went to the emergency room once because it was so bad. They wanted to prescribe me something. And I said, okay, if it's famotidine or something like that, something for nausea, fine. But when it comes to something for inflammation, I want my family doctor to say, yes, I want you on that, and I will manage that. And I will give you prescriptions for that. Now, the last Flexual I was using was a prescription that the emergency room doctor gave me. But I was, the one they gave me in like July or something like that for Flexeril, I still had that. I just finished that like a week ago or so. Supposed to last me like a month or something, if that. I think 3 weeks or something. So I'm not taking large doses, but I'm very sensitive to a lot of stuff. They hit me with anesthesia the other day when I got a steroid shot in my back. And my blood pressure went down. They call it an allergic reaction, but I told them, I said, look, I'm just sensitive. I am sensitive to anesthesia. So, but when they did that, I realized now what happened every time I went to the dentist and they didn't listen to me. By the time the EMTs get in there, my blood pressure returns. But they overjuice me and my blood pressure drops way down. And then I start this, it didn't happen this time, but I start that. Last time, well, it was a lot more anesthesia, I'm sure, at the dentist. And he gave me, I had a, what do they call that? Diaphoresis. Just kept sweating. So, the other thing is that I got the steroid shot. So sometimes it doesn't kick in, and sometimes it flares it up a little bit. It can take anywhere from like 2 to 7 days to start, and then it can take up to like 2 weeks to actually see the reduction in inflammation. So I might see that here shortly, but that hasn't started yet. But one thing for sure, I'm sitting more normal as far as how my legs are operating than it was when I got here, because my right leg was even much higher. But if my back cramps up, then my legs get taller and the pain diminishes. So I don't know if that's my back pulling the vertebrae off of the nerve, and then it juices up, and I'm back to normal for a little bit until my back uncramps, and then it drops back down. But there's also a chance, not for probably ever at this point, was before if I'd have known. However, there's a chance if I get my back to firm up a little bit and I start operating it a little bit, it might actually do that a little on its own, where it pulls the vertebrae up and off of the nerve, just by the nature of being more more responsive in the way it's supposed to be. What happens is when your back cramps up, your muscles forget how to work. And they have to relearn how to work. It's like if you sit in a chair too long, you can get what's called, this is what they call dead butt syndrome. Your butt forgets how to work. See, for me, I was explaining to her that I was so tight, and this had been pulled so tight by all this cramping, that actually happened to me. I said, I still have a little issue with my gluteus, but I actually had dead butt syndrome, not from sitting, but because it actually was causing the same thing that happens when you sit too much. It was just real tight, and the blood wasn't getting to it. It wasn't moving, and so there's a lot of tissue issue that has to be worked through first to see if this thing would undo itself. Because really, if I could minimize this leg issue and put it in the back burner for 6 months, maybe a year, I could really get myself somewhere so that I could be better situated for surgery if required. But the bottom line is, if they had told me in Naples, Florida, to wash my back, then I could have. Now, I knew I didn't want to get tight, and I did everything I could to get as much massage as I could. But boy, I'll tell you what, the trauma that they put into my life. So again, there's so many different things as to what this could be, as far as why I'm experiencing additional pain. So I've been walking a lot today. I used to just stand around, but I'm able to walk now a little bit better. My doctor told me today, this is the other thing that's opening up in Amarillo. I wanted a physical therapist that would be very responsive, that would go as slow as we needed to go and explain things to me. And I wanted one that, was intelligent, and I ended up with a PhD. And she's very interested in helping. The problem is when I go in with pain, my brain is dead. I focus as best I can, but it's like you're in a horror film or something. Not like now laughing and all of that. And I'm very humble. I thank them from one end to the other for all that they do. Even the people that try to push my buttons and do whatever it is they're doing because they're maybe bipolar that day. I'm even nice to them. So things in Amarillo are opening up. Not in a million years did I think I would have a PhD doctor, physical therapist, going one-on-one with my case. And it's just great. I mean, the lady at the front desk, we're trying to make appointments, and we made a couple, and I'm like, trying to focus. And she's like, if you want to do it another day, we can do it another day. So again, getting that response, not just the cookie cutter world. And the physical therapist, she's great. And the massage therapist, I'm going to get my first massage tomorrow. But just based upon her attitude. And I mean, the massage place looks fabulous. It's like a Taj Mahal. But just based upon her attitude, she passes. You know what I mean? If he doesn't do the greatest massage, then that's where it is. And I told her, when I was a massage envy in Santa Fe, I had some of the greatest massage therapists you're ever going to meet. And some of them were like 6 months out of school. I said, God really lined that place thick for my healing. But it decided to move additional evil and try to destroy it. All they had to do was stay out of my life. And they couldn't do it. So I'm trying a trick that a doctor in the emergency room in Tyler, Texas taught me to try to get the pain away till I finally find a real doctor. Is you take like an ibuprofen or an Aleve, and then like an hour or two later you take a Tylenol. You can take them together, but I do it that way. And that usually multiplies the pain relief. I mean, if it gets too bad, I hate to have to do it, but I go across the street to Exceptional Emergency Care, and they'll give me I forget what they call it. Is it Toradol? There's two. One's a Toradol and one's a Tramadol. A Toradol, I think it is. I think Tramadol is like an opiate. Toradol is a strong anti-inflammatory. So again, one of the biggest issues I had in Tyler, Texas is very poor communication. I mean, I couldn't even ask the right questions. But you get the right answers if I ask the right questions. It's a very evil city. Very evil city. So I'm not sure what kind of shape I'll be in a week or two, but hopefully I keep seeing little boosts, you know. So I had yesterday I had the sensation, I've been having the sensation that my back was just like gone. I mean, I had a certain feeling in the front where my chest was and all of that. And then where my back was just nothing. So again, for some reason, probably the Flexerol leaving my body. And I haven't used, I guess I used a little magnesium oil today. So I'm trying to figure, but it's coming back alive a little bit. So I have a sensation now that my back actually exists and not cramped. Although there might be a couple trigger points firing off in there, it's not the same as when it was cramped. So again, triceps, things like that have to be worked out. Things that I would normally get worked out by a massage therapist before this thing hit, I have to go back to the massage therapist and get them to hit that, because that's a different, aspect of all of this. So it's really interesting, the food delivery services that are available now, very well here in Amarillo. So this is the thing, is the weird part is I couldn't call Teledoc. If I had Teledoc in Tyler, Texas, if I had all the other apps and all the kind of thoughts that I'm having here, I could have sustained there. But I couldn't, because the city had just kind of collapsed around me. And what's cursing me off since probably the second week there at least. Now I see them here also, but they're powerless against the people of Amarillo. They're here. The suicide squads are here. But they're absolutely powerless against the people of Amarillo. And they know it. You'd see the look on their faces. Trash and garbage the same. So look out for your police officers, because they might be trying to get rid of a few and promote a few through psychological warfare and psychological torture techniques. Because they'll torture a boss until the boss promotes the criminal flunky or hires the criminal flunky. So you have to be on the lookout here in Amarillo for possible future suicides of police officers. So again, I don't know how you do here for mental health things. Let's not frown on it. They're not going to generally speak about it. The way the program wires is most people won't speak about it. Now, I want to go back to something real quick. My doctor tells me my strength is fine. I'm telling her I'm weak. She tells me my strength is fine. I tested. I said, I'm weak. So I don't know. The physical therapy doctor said, I tested you. You're fine. I said, well, it doesn't feel fine. But your officers, you have to make sure that they're taken care of. These are some extremely murderous cells of criminals that work out of various places. And your officer's not guilty just because he reacts to something. Again, I don't recommend using certain techniques on anybody to begin with. Because what you're doing is you're creating PTSD. Especially for somebody that's not a criminal. A criminal might actually pass your tests because they don't care that they're criminals. Anybody that's not a criminal doesn't even want to be near your criminal tests because they know criminals apply the test and could lie about it all day. And see, that's what stresses a lot of officers out. They know the other officers are corrupt because that's what they do. When they want to hit an officer corruptly for the deep state, they'll show him how corrupt everybody is. And they'll just railroad him a couple times. And then they say, okay, the FBI's investigating, you know. Of course, then the idea is that the FBI is going to railroad you. I hear he's gone. And gone is gone. Whatever God does with that, then God does with it. So I tried a couple things. I tried getting some things to work on my health, and a couple items didn't work. I had I got a back brace to see if that would do anything. That was a waste of money. And I didn't mind. I paid my roommate $10 to go pick it up. And I asked him to return it. I tell him I pay him $5 to return it because it's not going to work. He didn't charge me to return it. I just don't feel like driving past a certain distance. So I don't know. I mean, my tissues could heal a whole bunch from where they are. It's just a matter of it happening. And like I was telling the massage therapist, we were discussing, you got to find people that are willing to think. There's a thing called allergic muscles, and I've told you about that. And every time I get an intense flare-up, I get an intense drip. Now, that could be my sinuses let go, which means maybe a certain muscle let go and it pinged a nerve or something. So again, it could be that. It could be that the allergens are causing the inflammation in my body that causes these cramps. Whereas you would have inflammation at a level of 2, you have an inflammation at the level of 8 because the proteins around the nerves from the allergens are causing it. So again, even the basic idea of what caused this could be allergies to begin with. So every once in a while you get people that'll say, I agree. Again, being killed by the government is being killed by the government. Doing such things is a crime. Punishable in the metaphysical world with what it's punishable with in the physical world. Not telling you ever to do anything to harm anybody. But you do have a will. And your will says if you commit a certain crime, then that particular crime is a death penalty crime. Well, if that's yourself and that's who you are, then, you see? So if you've killed people with government service, saying it's legal because nobody made it illegal, then there is the metaphysical issues. So again, stay peaceful. Let God do what God does. My roommate, he's like watching violent movies. That's it. All day long. At first, he was a little bashful. He turned television on. As soon as he turned it on, that was it. Blood everywhere. I'm thinking, and I know he's not going to harm me. But I'm thinking, how am I going to get him out of this? I don't want to be rude. Like, boy, everything on television is violent these days. He's like, yeah, it's all it sells. been like that for like 20, 30 years. So I'm going to be the humble servant, and I'm going to try to just let it go. But, you know, you get drawn into the television every so often, and I'm looking over, and I'm like, what is that? Ew. I mean, just people being murdered. And it's either a horror film or a psychodrama where people murder each other. But it always includes blood. I'm thinking, he's got a certain channel on here. This isn't like happenstance. It can't be. So the guy here in a wheelchair, he's had a horrific something happen in his life. So I kind of see him every so often. And being in this shape here, it's kind of like, ee. So, you know. The thing about what I have is if it's bad enough, you can't, people are like, well, you just don't get surgery. Well, you can't. Because if you're pinging a nerve, you have to unping it or you'll eventually destroy it. So, you know, you're going to have to get surgery eventually. And if you wait too long, you know, generally nerves will repair. I mean, but it's not 100% surety. But if you wait too long, it doesn't make sense. That's why I have to get this to some knowledgeable surgeons so they can say, you know, ones that aren't afraid to say, okay, you're going to need surgery. You know, keep you through your course of physical therapy and everything, but based upon what I see, there's probably nothing that's going to help this versus, you know, without some surgery. And people get those surgeries every day. You got to remember that. Now, do they help everybody? No. But again, when you get to the point, and I'm trying to explain this to people that say this, that it's not always the best thing to get the surgery, is if you're pinging a nerve, you don't have a choice. If you're pinging a nerve, the back problem I'm not worried about. It's the leg problem. Right. So again, when it comes to back surgery, yeah, you don't want to rush into it, but if you're pinging a nerve that's messing your legs up, then at a certain point you're going to have to get that ping on ping. And, you know, I told the neurologist, I said, you know, he was checking my left leg out. I said, you know, when I wake up with a cramped back, that leg's standing tall. And the other leg is standing taller, but, you know, it's still. So he said, well, I think if we get it on ping, then it should get to the point of coming back. You know, he's not saying necessarily it needs surgery because he's not orthopedic. So he said, once we get that nerve on, and he didn't even say ping. He's like, something's irritating it. And he says, once we get whatever it is off of it, he said, it'll come back. That's what I believe. Because I need them to look for, and what he did look for at least, I wanted him to do I wanted a full body EMG, but they're not doing it. So I'm still trying to get it. But I guess my left arm's coming back, so it doesn't matter. So what we were looking for is to make sure that something wasn't destroying the nerve. Like some nerves will be destroyed, the lining and stuff like that. So when he tests it, it doesn't read the right reading. He could tell that the nerve itself. So his assistant did part of it. He did part of it. And I asked the assistant, you know, I said, do I need to see him for any other thing? Like, is there any nerve issue that I might have? He's like, nah. He goes, everything looked fine. So, like when we see MS or something like that, there's certain things you see in the nerve. And that wasn't evident. Which is funny because the doctor was like suggesting that. I'm like, he was like suggesting that before I went to the neurologist. One of the teledoc guys. I'm like, what? Because it didn't make sense. Because if you have MS, you don't have balance. And I already had tested myself for balance. Parkinson's disease and MS, you don't have balance. But this doesn't bid well at my age, so I wish, again, the government had been bridled a little bit and I could have stayed a course on my massage therapy because I wouldn't be here right now having these issues. And my life would have been different anyway for the last 5 years. I wouldn't have had the stressors that I had because a lot of times when you don't get massages, you get crimped up. And again, I told you I get them for medical reasons. I don't get them just for stress reduction. But again, if you have disability, you do need that part of it. And if you ask me, insurance companies should be paying for 10 a year, and they would be paying a lot less money like they are right now with me. If an insurance company had paid 10 times a year for me to get massages, because that would push me over the edge. I would have to get them, So if they would do that, then they wouldn't be paying the bills they're paying right now. Even MRI, can you imagine what MRIs cost? That'd be orthopedic surgeons. So again, the world is quite backwards. So the biggest issue is sitting and laying isn't comfortable. So if that was comfortable, then I wouldn't have really a problem too much with anything else. I'd go through it and deal with it. But those are two big issues. But as I can tell, my derriere, my gluteus is not as completely lost as it was the day I got here. They have there's some function to it. When I was traveling here, it was just a mess, and then even a few days into this thing. But what happens is, I think the less I cramp, the more it comes back. Because when I cramp, it confuses the neurology and confuses the tissues as to how am I supposed to be cramped? I'm supposed to be loose. So my back cramps, it pulls up on this, pulls over on that, and then it lets it all go, and it's like. So again, there's neurology also being pinged. So I guess that's enough about me. In Jesus' name we pray. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God and amen.